So, of course, Caroline is presently a member of the ASSAP executive right now, and she is one of our spontaneous case handlers for the NIC and ASSAP's National Register of Paranormal Investigators. So Caroline's interest in the paranormal has started from a very young age, having had personal experiences that she couldn't explain, and she's found herself trying to find answers ever since. She's the lead investigator and case handler for a group that she runs in Somerset called Somerset Paranormal Investigators, and she's an avid supporter of research and the scientific approaches to investigations into private cases and investigation venues. And she is, of course, here with me presenting the ASSAP webinars that we do on a weekly basis. So, Caroline, you're already set up. Our technical gremlins hopefully are out of the way, so feel free to have a quick sip of the old hot chocolate, relax, take a deep breath, and take it away.
Where is the Museum of East Dorset? I hear you cry. So bear with me and I will hopefully run through and update you a little bit more to where it is. So it's in the south of the UK. If you can see here on the map, you've got Poole here, Swanage, Blandford Forum over here, Salisbury up here, and here in the middle you've got the Museum of East Dorset, and it is in Wimborne Minster. A little bit more of a closer look there. If you can actually see, it's situated on the confluence of the rivers Stour and Allen. It lies in the charming, historically preserved market town of Wimborne Minster in East Dorset. Hopefully the gremlins, she said, are no longer there. This is a little bit more of a close-up. If you can see, there's a one-way system that goes around Wimborne Minster, and this is the main high street that comes in with the Museum of East Dorset that sits here. And the museum's very unassuming looking building has its frontage directly onto the main high street that runs through the town centre, and it is situated facing the Minster Church, which lays here. So the Minster Church, which exhibits a mixture of stunning Romanesque and Norman and Gothic architecture. If you can see, it's quite beautiful with the picture we've got here. It has its very own notable history that firmly stamps it into the English history map with its royal connections. The Minster has originally existed from the Saxon period, also known as the Dark Ages, for over 1300 years. It was expanded by the Normans during the 12th century and renovated to what we see today by the Victorians. Previously, the Minster was a monastery and a Benedictine nunnery. It is famed for housing the tombed resting place of King Ethelred of Wessex, who was Alfred the Great's brother. Next to his tomb is a 14th century brass memorial, and it resides next to the altar. This is the only marker to show the burial site of the English monarch. So the Minster, it also houses the tombs of John Beaufort. He was the first Duke of Somerset, and he is tombed along with his Duchess, and they were the maternal grandparents of King Henry VII. So it's no surprise to learn that the museum itself is totally in keeping with the long-stretching, rich history of Wimborne Minster. I just want to take you on a brief whistle-stop tour of the building's history, because learning about the history of a property is incredibly important to allow you to be able to take all of the information in and then relate it to any alleged hauntings that are put out there into history. So the original Burridge plot, where the current building is situated, has historic references that date back as early as the 1200s. Burridge plot is a term given to a plot of land that was leased out by the lord of the manor to the inhabitants living there. The people leasing the plot were called the burgesses. The current building may have been built over an earlier structure, but to date, no such evidence in history has been found to support this theory. The current building in its early form can be dated back to the 1500s, and it would have looked very different than it does today. It is believed to have been 1.5 stories high and would have resembled what we now know to be a chalet bungalow of today. The original building would have been just set back and facing the main high street as it is today. In the late 1500s, this building was extended. It had a fireplace added and a central chimney and a small southern wing. During 1613 to 1614, a hall, north and south wings, and an open courtyard are added. If you can see here, this is the Museum of East Dorset, and it lays within this building structure, all out through this area here and these side buildings. It is really extensively laid with plants and gardens to the back. It's incredible. It's very beautiful. And at the back, you would come in down through the main high street, come in through and park here if you're running events. And this is a cafe that they have added, but this is the main original building here. So as you can see, this was very much extended during the time that I'm going to give you this brief whistle-stop tour. So between 1625 and 1675, the building undergoes major structural change. The house is raised up to 2 stories in height and has a further timber-framed southern extension added. Maps of the time show this building to be extensively larger than all the other buildings on the high street, with the exception of the Minster, of course. In 1709, the current owner is forced to sell the lease on the property due to financial issues, with large debts being owed to others. He then moves out of the property. From 1709, the building takes on in part a new life, and it is split up between 2 families and is used as living space and shops underneath. Between 1756 and 1672, the property's lease changes hands several times, and great amount of remodeling, takes place. In 1889, the first documented evidence that records the name The Priest's House is on the first edition of the Ordnance Survey map. Although no evidence can be found to support why this name was adopted, it appears that no priest has ever lived there, even though the Minster is directly opposite. After numerous occupant changes and different shops, the property is given a listed building status in 1952. In 1962, the building opens a museum to the public in 3 of the ground floor rooms, and in 1987, the entire building is bequeathed to the town. In 2020, after more than 300 years of being split into different owners, leases and families, the building at last is reunited into one building and restored to what we see today. Inside the museum. So the Museum of East Dorset, which is known as MED, is beautifully and sympathetically renovated. It keeps the integrity of the building. The museum's focus is on the historical parts of the building, and obviously it has lots of interesting artifacts relating to the building, as well as local information and history. It is a relatively new paranormal venue that I'm sure that not many of you would have heard of. This hidden little gem of a venue popped up onto my radar just over a year ago. My friend, who is the MED Paranormal Venue Advisor, David Goulden, had offered it out for hire to my team, which has been mentioned before, Somerset Paranormal Investigators UK. I finally managed to find time in our very busy schedule and booked in to investigate the MED the last weekend in June 2024. I was also asked by the current CEO if I would write an article for Haunted Magazine for them as well. So this talk that I'm giving you tonight comes out of the magazine article. Obviously, I've elaborated a little bit more on the information that's supplied. So on the picture that I showed you before with the back entrance into the MED, this is where you come through. It's the tea room. So on arrival at the rear, we're welcomed into the modern looking cafe, and we walk through the beautifully kept gardens and vast established gardens towards the rear of the main building. Once inside the building, as I was being shown around, I was aghast at what felt like a maze of corridors. I don't know why I expected it to be quite tiny, especially from the frontage, but it was huge. It was like this maze of corridors, and it had such a vast number of rooms. I'm still surprised that they could fit all of those into the building. It was almost like it was a TARDIS. So from the limited photos of the venue I had seen prior to the visit, the size of the building was a pleasant surprise. The building, and the refurbished decor, and the museum's display of contents filled us with a buzz of excitement of what the night would bring for us. So I actually know that you're all here just to hear the ghosts. So without further ado, shall we have a look at the reported phenomenon within the MED? So the main reported activity in the second-hand book room. So if you're coming into the lower ground floor, this room is on the far, as you're looking at the property, it's on the right-hand side of the building at the front. And you have the gift shop, which leads into this part of the bookshop, and then it leads into this book room at the back through a door that's just off the screen here. The main reported activity is in the second-hand book room, which is this one in particular. Not so much this one, but this one more in particular. So during the recent redevelopments of the museum, when one of the members of staff was unpacking the boxes and stacking the shelves, she turned around and found that the books were stacked on the floor in a big pile after she had placed them all on the shelves. So they were a little bit off-put by this and wasn't sure what had happened, because it was more than one member of staff that had stacked the shelves. So book stacking, that's quite an unusual report. It has been verified by the CEO that that's what the staff had encountered, and that's what's been logged into the historical information of the research that's been carried out. The staff member had asked to remain anonymous for my article and also for this talk. So for the purpose of today, they will not be named. The next reported phenomenon is in the kitchen, which is located on the ground floor at the back entrance of the building. So if you're coming through from the cafe, from the back entrance through, you walking up through the beautiful Kent gardens that I showed you the picture of previously, and the left-hand side entrance would take you into the kitchen, and the door would be up around this area here. You would come in through here and walk in that way. So what's been reported in the kitchen? The smell of smoke and baking in particular. So Dave Goulden himself, who looks after a vast amount of different venues across the Dorset area, he is not somebody who doesn't clearly think and value the information that is showed to him. So for him, this has left him scratching his head. He said, "Tricky one, this is his own words, as I wonder if it's just a power of suggestion or something subliminal with it being clearly a kitchen. Although I have smelt smoke myself in the area, and it's been a long time since it was last fired up. I'm not sure how long," he said, but he would think it was over 50 years or so. So it's not just David that has had the smell of smoke that they've reported. So it's multiple people that have smelt that in that area now. In case anybody's wondering what this is, it's a virtual reality TV display cabinet that you push buttons and it's interactive and you have like a hologram that comes up through. So the Great Hall, this is the Great Hall as it is called, and there's seats through the window here. The kitchen is off towards this direction. And then you've got the frontage of the shop, which would take you through this way. And also into the corridor that would take you up to the stairs. So this is where you come out from the Great Hall into this corridor, and there's stairs to go upstairs, obviously. And then you've got a door that goes through into the frontage and shop front of the frontage that pops onto the main high street. So the Great Hall, which is located on the ground floor, just outside the kitchen and outside into the corridor area as well, bottom of the stairs. People have reported, multiple people have reported, feeling very uneasy and hearing audible phenomena which can not be found, not accounted for. They also hear knocks, bangs, taps, and talking in very low voices. So this is on the top floor, the schoolroom. And it's been reported on numerous occasions that people have experienced corner of the eye phenomena, thinking that they have seen someone stood there or moving. But when they look, nothing is there. And it's more like it's a black shadow or a figure. I don't know what other description I can give it. That's what's being told to me. Corner of the eye. They can clearly see something that's there, but it's not visible when they look, and they can't make out from the corner of the eye exactly what it is, but it's figure shaped. So this is the schoolroom, and through here there is a little hole in the wall that has some artifacts that's placed in it. I don't think that they are original artifacts, but it's almost like it's a small priest hole, but not big enough for anyone particularly to get into. Unless you're a naughty school child, of course, from those days. Just off the screen here, there is a door going out through to another part of the museum upstairs, but this is to the left of this part of the desk here. So it's a different view that we've taken to show you what it is that's going on. So moving on to the investigation. Who were we? How many of us were there? And how did we carry out the experiment? What did we find and what did we capture, if anything? So, as I advocate for ASSAP, we decided to take this back to basics for this investigation. And we wanted to carry out the investigation very tightly tied down so that we didn't have any external influences. The team carried out this investigation coming from a scientific focused research perspective. Back to basics, what do I mean by that? So notepad, pen, a recording device on a camera, a recording device on audio. And yeah, that's basically it, really. You know, we wanted to find out what was there in a simple format. And the more equipment that you start introducing into investigations, the more complex and the more influences to null the experiment, should I say, so that you would have a lot more things that could go wrong. So if you go back to the basics with just a notepad, a pen, and a recording device, you tend to find that you can get the best type of results. So who was in the team? The team consists of 7 people. We also invited a couple of extra friends with us. And on the ground floor, 11 of us all sat spread out from each other, spanning and covering the entire part of the lower floor. We didn't speak out or talk to each other for the entire experiment. We listened, we observed, and we timely recorded on our notepads information only. Some people chose to use notes in the phone, which when you put the information in, it actually time and date stamps it. So it's just as good as having a notepad and pen. We decided that by doing this and just listening and observing, there was no way that anybody else could possibly prime anybody, because we all know that during investigations, if you hear something, you tend to say, "Did you hear that?" And then someone will say, "What have you heard?" And if I, for example, said, "Oh, I can hear a man coughing," everybody else would not want to maybe be embarrassed because they didn't hear the same thing. So they tend to go along with each other sometimes on investigations. And so that we didn't prime anybody else, we cut that part of an experiment out where no verbals were communicated, or at least we tried not to. I will explain there was a slight problem that we had a bit later on in the investigation, so we did have to speak out. But during this first investigation, the team recorded in their notes, along with anything else that they'd experienced, so hearing things, anything like that. So everything was recorded within the notes themselves. When we'd finished this timed experiment, I believe it to be 15 minutes, I think, that we did for the first one. We reviewed the notes during this debrief straight after the experiment. And what we had found was quite remarkable. We saw that multiple people had experienced the same thing at exactly the same time. What was noted? Okay, noted was hearing footsteps walking above us in the Great Hall. So the picture that I showed you here with this AI thing, this is the Great Hall. We heard footsteps walking very, very clearly. All of us heard those. We heard loud voices coming from upstairs over the stationer's room. So if you go through this corridor down here into this room, so you've come out of this room, you've come out of the kitchen into the corridor, and this is the stationer's room. We heard very, very loud voices coming from in there. We heard knocks and bangs coming from the Great Hall at the back. So here, nobody was moving, no one was stood. We were all seated. There was no way that any footsteps in the whole of the building would have been heard because we were very strictly locked down. We also heard a female talking from the hallway area by the stairs. So it was around this area that we were hearing the voices coming from. Now, if you go through here into the main area of the this area here, then that area takes you into the frontage of the shop. Come through from the shop in this direction, and you back on yourself, and you're in the shop, which takes you into the book room. So 3 of the ladies who were in the book rooms and the shop area also noted at exactly the same time on their notes, no priming, that they felt hot, dizzy, sick, and all had headaches at exactly the same time on their recorded information. I have no idea what could have possibly have caused that. So we repeated this experiment upstairs across the entire floor. Now, as I said, we didn't prime each other, we didn't speak. This is an exception, this next part, where we spoke. Because I lead the team, I had to stop the experiment. As we had started and we had gone to record and we were all silent, I heard 2 males having a full-blown conversation. Now, I was sat down this corridor here. There's a lift at the bottom, and I was sat up here just off screen. My husband and John were down the bottom here near the lift area. And I think Mike wasn't too far away. He was over in this other room, just off the back of the lift. So I stopped this experiment, and I said, I was quite firm. I said, "Come on, guys, we start this experiment. Why are you talking? Because we need to lock this down and carry on. We've got a limited amount of time that we have to get this experiment underway to see what we can find. And they said it wasn't them. Nobody in that area was speaking, but they could all clearly hear incredibly loud two men having a very clear conversation. Don't know where it came from. It was down this area here somewhere. It wasn't John, it wasn't Mike, and it wasn't Martin. When we went back and reviewed the footage on cameras and recording equipment, you can very clearly hear it's not them that's speaking. It was coming some distance away from them. So we then restarted the experiment. What was recorded then by multiple team members at the same time, not only the two males talking, we had, when we looked back and reviewed our information, we heard a female make a little cry sound, and at the same time, footsteps started walking. And they were footsteps of ladies' heels that were walking. We could very clearly hear that. So other experiments were carried out during the remainder of the night. Personal experiences that we had were reported of seeing a dark figure type shadow. This is upstairs. It's a window that's just off to the side here of the museum up in the schoolroom. So if you come off screen off this way, you have this window, and it was reported by 3 of the team that they all saw somebody walk past this window when they were looking out, that nobody was in that part of the building and they could see somebody walking past very clearly. Everybody was accounted for in the room of the schoolroom because it was at the end of the evening. We were doing our last experiment before we collected in the recording equipment and moving on to packing up to go home. So that left us scratching our head because, you know, who could be in this building? It was locked down. There was no other way for anybody else to get into the building apart from when we let them in at the beginning of the night. Everything was locked down. Dave Gordon had the keys. Nobody else could have got in. And Dave was with us along with our team. So we were all upstairs. So as we wrapped up the night, we had loads of unanswered questions rolling around in our heads. The MED was certainly a beautiful, warm, welcoming place that had a very homely feel to it. It did not fail to supply us with the things that we would need to give it further research and investigation at a later time in the future. So if you are looking for a one-off visit or a project for a long-term study case, then this could be the place for you. How do you book? So what you can do if you can book is pop on to their website and give them an email message, and somebody will get back to you about booking the room. For the money, I can't remember. I think it's about £350. I'm not exactly sure. I could be thinking of one of the other Dave's venues that he hires. But I think it's around about the £300 mark. He is incredibly good at getting back to you quickly. If you just wanted to go there for a day without booking to go for a paranormal investigation, you can. You just turn up, come in through the frontage, through the main high street, and you can pay your price at the front desk and have a look around the museum. Now, the artifacts that they have there are incredible. Most of them are having some relation to the building itself. The little bit of fame and interest that might interest some of you is that they hold the very first Valentine cards that were ever printed, and they are all stored within the museum currently. Now, these weren't known to be there until one of the most recent renovations, when a walled up or a locked room that had been sealed many, many years ago, around the time of one of the leases, the lease people I think the father died, and in his will, he had put to his son that they were to seal the room and that they weren't to open it ever again. And when finally it was reopened with some of the redevelopments, they had found that the cards, because it was a stationer's, the cards were kept inside were Valentine cards, amongst others. But these were known to be the original first ever Valentine cards that were produced. So this is why they're very particularly proud of what it is that's there. It's available to them. They have artifacts left over from the shop when it was originally there. They had haberdasheries, they had food stockists, lots of various different things, and it's all incredibly restored, very well maintained, and beautifully presented to members of the public. So that is the presentation today for the MED. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, I will try and answer those for you now.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Much appreciated for that. It's actually really good to have a talk and a presentation that actually is based in the details of an investigation and about the venue itself. It sounds like a wonderful place that everyone really should get along and have a look at. I mean, so what drew you to this place? Did they reach out to you, or did you reach out to them? I'm not quite sure. You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, so Dave Gordon had mentioned to me that the MED was a new venue to him originally, but with all of the things that we had booked in and private cases that we do for members of the public, it was incredibly difficult to find some time to book this. So then he came back to me and said, well, look, when are you going to book? Because I've got something to put to you. Would you like to write a magazine article for the MED? I've spoken to the CEO. She knows that you write for magazines, especially Haunted Magazine, and she would like you to show it and to detail what it is that they can offer people for the paranormal. So yeah, please, would you like to come along? You can investigate and write what you find. And then obviously here's the reported hauntings. So I've done all this research, and I'd like to say a massive thank you to the CEO and members of the team for giving their support to me in writing the article. There was quite a bit of extensive information that was handed to me in a big bulk of some of the research that these guys have done. I did a lot of reading, a lot of spamming up on other things that wasn't found, and added it into this talk and added it into the research. The whole point of doing the article, really, because it's a heritage building, I'm absolutely pro trying to support heritage buildings by helping funding. So if we can respectfully investigate, we are then encouraging people to help to support by hiring the premises, as well as having some really good research opportunities. So yeah, that's how that came to me.
Excellent. Do you want to leave your screen share now so we can enjoy?
Oh gosh, yeah,
No,
sorry.
it's okay. I was thoroughly listening to your answer. Then I realised that the presentation still took up half the page. So, in terms of our questions tonight, there actually has been quite a few in the chat, and I guess I opened that up really a little bit earlier to say how. I think I wrote here: how do people typically react when they hear about the museum's ghost story? Are they more excited? Are they scared? Are they skeptical about what's in there? And do you think the hauntings are more associated with the building, or are they more associated with the items that are within the building?
Yeah, so let's break that down into the individual questions. So, are people scared? Well, this is a new venue for the paranormal. So, what Dave had hoped, along with the CEO and myself, is because it's a new venue, we can hopefully, with the information that we put into the public domain, put the correct history, the correct information, and the alleged hauntings, we can make sure that we note them properly so that people know what it is that's being experienced there. It was an incredible place that was warm, and I cannot mention enough how how much of a home it felt like. There's nothing scary there. There's nothing that's been reported that's frightening. So we would like to make sure that we put it out into the public domain that whatever you might experience there is not scary. Um, so hoping that if we get this right from the beginning with the CEO and Dave, who's the paranormal advisor, that we will make sure that we keep all the bad press away from the door of things that aren't factual and correct. What was the second part of the question?
The second part of the question really is: do you feel the hauntings are more associated with the building and its own past, or the collections that are housed within there as it's a museum?
I think it's a bit of both, to be honest with you, because I'd mentioned to you about the brief whistle stop history that there was multiple people living in the building at the same time who ran multiple shops. So at one time, I think that there was three different families living in there. You would have an influence of previous occupancy, I believe, but where they now have brought some items in from outside for the museum type place. So the penny farthing that you saw upstairs, that has had reports of having paranormal activity linked to it. I didn't put that in myself because I can't actually substantiate the information that's been given about the penny farthing, whether it is actually that itself or the room, so, which is why I've left it out. But the history that is attached to the penny farthing is that there is a child who was riding it when it was in existence. It lost control with him riding it. He hurtled down the street and he ended up dying in a horrific accident. And that is reported with attached, I've forgotten the word for it, the history that's attached with that, the precedence that comes with it. So, you know, is it something that's been brought into the museum that's causing that haunting? It could be. You know, we are here assuming that ghosts are real. And we are here assuming that all paranormal activity is paranormal because of ghosts. Obviously, nobody has got definitive proof at the moment. So, yeah, I think myself personally that there could be a multiple level hauntings from people that's been there before. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough, makes sense. So I guess on the back of that, when we're talking about hauntings and ghosts and so on, Kieran's question is quite a relevant one because it says, has anyone picked up anything psychic from the photographs through the use of psychometry?
I haven't actually. I haven't actually gone down that route yet, but it might be a really nice chance for people to try. We did try a psychometry experiment, which is a bit wacky to some people, but just go with this because we had some spare time when we were there. And it was suggested by one of the team that we tried some psychometry, and none of us knew the history of this penny farthing. It was something that one of the team had researched extensively, and she'd found out. I was more interested in researching the building with the history, and she'd researched this. So nobody knew, and we all touched it. And I think two of the team actually associated the bike with a horrific accident and a child. So we don't claim that we're psychic within our team. We don't claim that we're mediums. It was a little fun experiment to see if anyone could read anything from the bike and tell us the history of it. So as venues go, this is particularly giving. And I don't know if other people have found this. I don't know if it's because it's been treated really nicely by the people who's in there and it's a lovely homely environment. But yeah, everything that we found, everything that we've dealt with is incredibly nice. So I'm hoping that if people were going to read things from the pictures, then it would only be good stuff because that's all that there is attached to the building.
I suppose from that, you know, the way that you approached it there, you didn't have any knowledge of it yourself personally, and your other friend didn't either. But there was a member of your group that did know. I mean, potentially they might have been projecting into the environment, and you weren't necessarily picking it up off the bike. You were actually picking it up off her. If you go down,
yeah, it could have been. Could have been telepathic. Yeah, we are a very close team. We work incredibly well together, and because most of us have been together for 6 years, about that time. And then a few of us have been in it for 12 years. So, yeah, we are very well established. We are a team that we trust. So, nobody would have known this information without declaring it because it would make the experiment null and void, really, to be honest with you. So, those who did know, which was one person who did the research, didn't take part in the psychometry. So, yeah, we really closed this investigation down and made it as scientific and as clean as possible.
That's definitely the way to do it for sure. So Kieran Farrell comes in from that, saying sometimes in these very old period buildings there are small secret storerooms for the safe storage of family treasures. Do you think this also might have been the case here?
Yeah, so that little boxed part off, I definitely think so. I mean, at the moment, they've put a dead corpse of an animal in there. I think it's a rat that they found in one of the walls, but they've put it in there. It doesn't belong from that area. I think they've just used it as a display area. But yes, it could have been for, I mean, because there were so many shops, could it have housed the cash from the day? Could it have been a locked room, a locked little cupboard in a small, narrow corridor that could have been where they stored the most important things, like the float for the shop buildings? Yeah,
Yeah, makes sense. So I noticed actually
definitely.
I was doing a bit of research in the background there, just searching the venue up, and I noticed the fact it's hired out to a variety of different ghost hunting companies on almost a nightly, regular basis. I mean, they must have become quite popular since it's went public.
I think so. Dave did say they had quite an upsurge of people hiring it since the magazine article went out. So that would have been 3 months ago. Yeah, they had quite an upsurge and they were very pleased with the write-up. So I hope that they're having the correct people with the correct mindset going in there, giving it the good reviews that it deserves. It's a beautiful establishment. I'm absolutely enamored with it, and the team are desperate to get back there again.
Sounds good. So Nicola says, did you hear any distinct words from the conversation, or was it an emotional or a normal one? I'm assuming this is the gentleman's arguments, perhaps.
Yeah, there was no argument. It was just a loud discussion, in a silent building when nobody is talking. I wouldn't have said they were talking any louder than me. I mean, I don't know if we've got any of our team members in here tonight, have we? Let me have a quick look. Um, I did see that we had Donna in here earlier, but I don't know if she's lost contact because she might have been looking at it from during her lunch break. She's a nurse. No, I was going to ask if they'd had heard it separately, a little bit louder. It was loud voices. I could hear and I could make out some parts of it, but not distinct words. It was coming more from where Martin, John, and Mike were sat, and unfortunately, they're not around to ask what wording that they heard because my memory doesn't serve me that well. Unfortunately, it was back in end of June, I think it was last year. Or no, this year was it? Yeah.
Well, there's lots of comments regarding to how wonderful the talk is tonight. So I noticed here that Kieran's mentioned about the penny farthing, how he rode one in his earlier days here, and how difficult they are to ride. I mean, I wouldn't even know how you even get on one, let alone ride a penny farthing.
I think the one that we showed in the picture was a child's version or a lady's version. I would probably suggest more, well, I don't know, maybe it was for tiny gentlemen as well. Yeah, I wouldn't know how to get on, but Kieran, I didn't think you were that old that you rode penny farthings. You look well for your age.
Well, it was just an experiment. There are several reasons why riding a penny farthing is difficult. One of them is because you need something like a chair or a mounting block to get up onto it. And then, of course, you're suspended rather high. So if anything does happen, it's a bit difficult to jump off it. But the main difficulty is that you've got to pedal at the same time as steer. So you've got to coordinate that. Whereas in a modern bicycle, you don't, because the gearing arrangement is completely separate from the steering wheel. So that's what makes it difficult, apart from being perched up very high.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, that's interesting. But No, I don't think I'd be interested in having a bone shaker ride on it. I'm not that flexible anymore.
So Irali asks, is there any folklore available that might explain the phenomena you witnessed?
I haven't looked into the folklore part of it. I mean, you have got that really big minster across the road. So even when it was a burridge, was the land used for something else before in the 1200s? Because there's nothing in reported history to say why it got the name the Priest House. So was it a part of the minster originally? I have no idea. But I mean, the minster wasn't built back in the 1200s. So, yeah, that could be something to further my research to have a look at some folklore. It's not something that I usually cover. For most of you, you'll know that I'm quite a practical girl and I like facts and figures. I don't know anything else, to be honest with you. I just deal with facts and figures and stuff that can be definitely given the tick for being authentic. So, but I will have a look in to see if there's anything else that could have given that the hauntings.
Yeah, I made a few notes while you were giving your talk and kind of associated with questions. And really, you answered one there. I was going to ask, how does it compare to other haunted and historically significant buildings that are in the area? I mean, I guess you answered the obvious question there. It's the church, the minster, may have a close connection with the building. So, why do you think that ghost stories like these from the Museum of East Dorset capture people's imaginations?
I think if you're living in an area that for people in Dorset, for example, do they know the history of everything that they have on their doorstep? I have gone over the border today and I didn't need my passport when I left Somerset, but it was still quite a distance for me to travel. I know that we are called Somerset Paranormal, but it's not just Somerset that I research. If, like people who live in the area, what do they know is on their doorstep? So this is why I love researching, so I can share my knowledge and share the findings. And I'm hoping that it will just help to with learning of what it is that's right on your doorstep and exactly around you. So if people can see this magazine article, I think they've pushed the article within the MED itself. It's available for people to write to read. And it is exactly as I've given on the talk tonight, except I've packed it out more. So I'm just hoping that people have shown a bit of interest. I'm going to include the MED in a little bit more detail than I did in the article in my books that's coming out in the new year. I'm doing one on Somerset and the rest of the UK is a separate book. So it will hopefully get into a few bookshops around and it will spread the word even more about what's going on out there for people locally.
Sounds good. So, for someone wanting to visit the museum, hoping for a paranormal experience, what advice would you give them?
Do it. Absolutely. Get yourself a team if you haven't already got one, or, we might be going back there again. It is quite a small place where it's very open in some ways. So you can't take 50 people there on an investigation. You need to have a small team of you. 11 was a good number. I don't feel that it was too many. We split out, like I say, across the whole of the lower floor and the whole of the upper floor. So, yeah, just get yourself a team together, go with an open mind, leave your gadgets at home because that confuses situation. And, from what we experienced in the short period of time that we were there, it had an awful lot to offer. This place is amazing. It's going to be one of my favorite places to go back to again.
I mean, there was a comment earlier from Nicholas saying that about phenomena shouldn't be any different between day and night. There's probably as much going on in the day as there is at night time. Are you aware of any kind of daytime kind of events that are going on there? Or would they keep that as a separate thing?
Yeah, they do. Like I said, you can go there to look around the museum. They also hold daytime events. So they do, I think, afternoon tea in the tea room, and then you may get to go around the museum. You also have school projects where the local school children are taken in. They use the schoolroom and they do some like activities and things that would be of the time, and involve themselves in learning history. I also believe that they have other events and activities. If you go onto their website and you can click events and activities, you can make your bookings through the main portal for anything that they've got going on. And with Christmas, I should imagine there'd be a lot of stuff going on at Christmas time at the moment.
So can we give the kids a Ouija board and see what happens?
No, I don't. I don't think Ouija boards are a good idea. No.
A bit of pendulums or whatever else that people play with these days. Get
Yeah,
out to
we want to
psychological
encourage good behaviour there. We don't want to encourage naughty behaviour.
Excellent. Okay, I think we've just passed 8 o'clock, and I think we've covered a lot of questions, a lot of topic here tonight, and it's been a wonderful opportunity to have a chat with you properly about this wonderful location. It sounds like an excellent place that we ought to get involved with and learn a bit more about. But shall we draw our conversation to a close then? Caroline, do you have our next week's speaker? I believe it's John Sabola, is that correct?
Yeah, that's John Sabol, and I think it's called the oh my gosh, I've done a brain
A melt.
oh my gosh. What's it called when you dig up relics?
Archaeology?
Unearthing.
Oh my God, sorry. I'm still thinking about the museum. Archaeology. Archaeology of the US, I think it's called.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. Because, I mean, I can remember I met John briefly at an ASSAP conference a couple of years ago. But on the Sunday, myself, Matt Arnold, we left early, so I didn't get a chance to listen to his talk. So it'd be wonderful to see what he's been up to and to learn a bit more about what his topics and the history that he has and the interest that he has. So it'd be good to listen to that. So.
Yeah. Him and his wife are incredible speakers, and the vast knowledge that he's got. If anybody doesn't know much about his history, he is one of the first people that I'm aware of that carried out the Singapore experiment, where you would dress up into that age, that timeline, and try to invoke and encourage paranormal activity. Except it's not called the Singapore experiment for him. He called it something different, but I'm sure that he will bring that into his talk when we speak to him next week. He was scheduled for today, but obviously we swapped because of work commitments for himself. So that's why you've got me rather than the scheduled person that was supposed to be John.
Okay.
But yeah, and we'll keep the other part of this talk, the Fort Widley, in case anybody else drops out or we need another talk at last minute. And then I thought that it would be easier to do that for you guys so that we can make sure that we don't keep you here too long today.
All
but
right.
Thank you very much for listening.
All right, sounds good. Thank you very much. Okay, good night, everyone. Make sure you have a good weekend. And Christmas is on the way, so make sure you drink plenty of eggnog and have some fun. All right, take care, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
Night night.